Good morning, viewers, and welcome back to the channel. All right, so if you're reading the title, then you obviously know what we're talking about today. And of course, we're going to talk about there it is, Talkpod N39 Plus, virtual ham. Not actual ham radio, but virtual ham radio. And anyone can use it. This actually is a fascinating device, and normally, I want to say this ahead of time, normally I am against POC. You see, the push-to-talk over cellular radios, I'm not a fan of. And I've talked about it before on the channel, that, if the cell network goes down, it's not going to work. And that's true with the TalkPod. It is. But I think the TalkPod itself has a place, and there is a reason why. First of all, I want to thank TalkPod for sending this to me. They sent it to me a while back, and I'm just now getting around to talking about it. But I've had a lot of time to play with it. Now, when you purchase this, it comes with a SIM card. This is the first thing you have to know, is that it comes with a SIM card, but it's not activated. You actually have to send an email with the number off the SIM card to TalkPod for them to activate it. I didn't know that when I first got it. So I had to contact the guy at TalkPod and find out. So that's something you need to be aware of. Now, it takes about 24 to 48 hours, depending on when you send the email, to get it activated. Now, there's another thing that we'll get into in a moment with this. But like I said, this is virtual ham, so you can set up your own channel on here with your own virtual code. No one's on that channel but you. So if you have someone or a group of people that only you want to talk to, y'all want to have a private little chat amongst yourselves, you can do that. Now, most of the traffic on here is generally on 146, 520 is what I found. But it's fairly simple. You got even with the good old exit button here, you can turn the screen on and off, which, hey, that makes it easy, doesn't it? So there it is. And the battery on this thing lasts a good long time. I don't charge it up very often, but I use it quite often, oddly enough. So, of course, on the side, you've got your push-to-talk, 2 side keys. One of these will show you who all's on the channel that you're on. Let's jump over here. Let's hit star to go down to 520 here. That shows you who all's on the channel. The top side key does. Bottom side key will show you call history of who all's been talking on it when it's been on. Who all you've received. Who all you've heard. So it keeps track of it for you. And you can program in your own call sign or your own identification, whatever you want on there. Of course, it's a good thing. Now, of course, I have a private channel on here on channel A, and y'all can all see what the number is there. I don't care. It's not a big deal because I do have a person. Shoot! Hey, damn it! Give me a second, people. Ooh. Well, y'all heard that crash, didn't you? Well, I'll tell you. I'll take a quick second here and I'll explain what that crash was. It looks like. First of all, my camera just disconnected. So let me fix that real quick. There we go. Now we have the camera back. Okay. What that sound was that happened, I moved my foot and I hit the generator under my desk. Under my desk, I have a generator, and on top of it was a lantern that was on the charger, and knocked it off. All right. That's all that was. Got that. Anyway, continuing on. Boy, don't we like the way we do this when it's live. See, when it's live, there's always something, right? Okay. So, continuing on, talking about this. Of course, yes, I have a private channel set up on here that I talk to my wife on. Let's get the next part to this. So this radio is by far too complicated for my wife to use. But my wife has one of these, which I do too. I hate these things, by the way. But she has a smartphone. And so you can download onto your smartphone the Talkpod VHAM app, the virtual ham app. You don't have to set up a login or anything, but you can download it to your phone and then use it to talk to the radio. So my wife has that on her phone, and I have it on, and I have the radio here. So she can talk to me on it. Now, this has an advantage for us because we like to talk periodically when she's on her way home from work. Problem is, a lot of times there's wind and noise. And I don't like hearing that in a phone earpiece. You know, you got the Bluetooth earpiece in, you're hearing all that wind and stuff. I don't like that. With the VHAM, she can just push the button, push the talk button on the phone. She can say what she needs to. I hear it, and that's it. Saves a lot of headaches, if you ask me. And there's another purpose for this too. Say you're an older person, or you know an older person who maybe they're in an assisted living facility, or maybe they're in a retirement community where they can't have a ham radio and they can't have antennas or what have you. They could have this. You could give them this, and they could still talk to people and communicate like they used to. This would be a great gift for older people that you know. Really, I think it's a great gift for that. So keep that on your Christmas bucket list. Of course, the menu on here, let's take a look over here in the menu for just a second. The menu is very simple. You've got Group A, Group B, you've got the call log, you've got the settings, and you've got the About. The About will tell you all your SIM information, your device info, but it'll also show you your data usage, how much data you've used, over the period of time. The menu, and go into settings here. Settings are very simple. General settings, audio settings, and shortcut key. Now, this is something to keep in mind, too, with this radio, is that it's not a regular analog radio. So there are going to be times when when you may not have the strongest cell signal there is. And the other day, my Talkpod really wouldn't have been useful because the cell signals and the cell signal itself was really bad the other day. So, of course, the Talkpod, when the signal when the signal is a little weak on the cell signals around here, and I live in kind of a radio hole, so cell signals even sometimes can be a problem. The Talkpod will restart periodically and reconnect, and that's it's one of those things that happens. It doesn't bother me. It did at first, and then I realized it has to do with the cell signal and everything, so I don't worry about it. It's not an analog radio where you're always going to have a connection. That's just little things to keep in mind. Let's talk a little on the specs on this real quick. The spec sheet here on my screen. This is only IP54, so no going swimming with it. Sorry, guys. I know y'all like to jump into the pool with your radio on. Not a good idea with this one. And for those looking at a price point, this runs about $70 on Amazon currently. So keep that in mind. A little pricey. It does include 1 year of service, and you can renew the service on Talkpod's website for a nominal fee of $10 per year. By the way, these could replace cell phones with that price point. I mean, I pay a lot more than that a month for a cell phone. And the only person I really talk to on the cell phone anymore is the wife, so maybe I don't need that cell phone after all. But I mean, something like this really could replace communications, baseline communications, if you wanted to. Of course, you're not going to have text messaging, but who needs that anyway? I know a lot of people want the bells and whistles, one device that does everything, and I don't. If you've got only one device doing everything, and that device breaks, you got one device doing nothing. So I like having multiple devices doing independent jobs that work in concert with each other. You know, it's one of those things about that. Um, let's see here. Of course, the included with the purchase, of course, is the Talkpod radio itself, the antenna, the battery, the USB-C charging cable, the belt clip, and the lanyard. Now, of course, you'll notice I don't use the belt clip. No, not a fan of that. And USB-C charging is on the bottom, so you'll be laying it down to charge it up. But those aren't big issues at all. Of course, on the side, you do have your standard K1 port for your headset and microphone. I don't ever use a headset or a microphone with it, but you can if you want to. And of course, it's in a bright green color to keep you from losing it, at some random point. Okay. So it's a good little radio, although not an actual radio. Of course, it's a virtual POC style radio. One of the other things about this, as opposed to the POC radios that are out there all the time, and there are so many of them, is you don't have to have the radios set up to be interconnected to each other. On a lot of those POC radios, you'll have to have them interconnected where it's set up by the service itself, linking X number of radios together. And on here, of course, with the Talkpod, you don't have that issue at all. You don't have that problem. In fact, it's just activate the SIM card and set up the virtual code. And the thing about that is set up your virtual frequency, set up your virtual code if you want it. It's very self-explanatory how to do that. We'll just go in here and we'll put in one real quick. Okay, so let's go 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Now there's nothing. There's no one on there except for me, obviously. But you can go in and go into Group B, and you can select that, and then you could go in there and I believe it's under Edit Group, and then you can confirm that. Oh, I did it wrong. I have to go down. Go down and you hit the virtual code and then confirm that. Hit confirm, and then I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And then I'm going to go to, or put this back on 146.520. I like to listen to that. So, but what I'm saying is you can, of course, set it up real easy. It's a real simple setup. Straight through the menu, straightforward. So, that is one of those things. All right, we'll talk a little more about this. Let me move this for a minute. All right, move that off of there. All right. Get to look at that background for a moment. As I was saying, the Talkpod itself, I like it. But it's not like the POC, so you're not interlinking it. You can just set it up yourself, set up the connections, and it makes it a lot easier to work with. Would I recommend it? Yes, absolutely. I think that it's great, especially if you need a backup source of communication with a spouse, or with family that may be a longer way away. Maybe you don't want to rely on just the cell phones. Maybe you want to have a way to talk to each other. Or maybe you have a relative that is in a nursing facility or a retirement home that can't have a radio or have a radio, or maybe, maybe you could get this for them. They could talk to not just you, but they could talk to other people around the world. That's an interesting thing there. Allows people to stay connected. And anything that allows people to stay connected is great. Now, in a grid down situation, of course, it's not going to work. Because once the cell phone towers are down, it's not going to work. We know that. But for the purpose of staying connected, it's a great tool. And you can never have too many tools in your toolbox. Hey, this I've got. You can, like I said, you can never have too many tools in your toolbox. I needed a set of wrenches a while back, and I bought 2 sets of the same wrenches. Why? Because I might need to use 2 wrenches at the same time with the same size. I didn't have the size I needed, so I'd rather have 2 of them than not to have any at all. And a lot of times when I'm purchasing radios and stuff, I buy 2 packs. One, it's cheaper to buy things in 2-pack, and also you always have a backup that way. And that's the thing about it when you look at preparedness and stuff. It's always about having backups. The other thing is, if you've got a local group of people and y'all want to have a backup to phones, but there's somebody talking over there on 146.520 on the VHAM. Somebody talking there. I'm going to just turn that down. There we go. All right. Anyway, but it allows you to if you have a group of people per se that you wanted to communicate with, and y'all didn't want to rely on the phones, Talkpod would work for that too. There's a lot of situations where I think it would work, but primarily just in being able to communicate with people around the world. Now, we live in very trying times. We do. And we can't always get accurate information from other parts of the world from the media. You can't trust those guys, right? But if you use something like this where you can talk freely to people around the world, maybe you can make contact with people in other parts of the world and get their perspective on what's going on. Maybe you'll get the information that you're missing out on from just being stuck in that echo chamber of locality. I think that's an interesting idea too. And I think that it's got a great purpose when, like I said, for the elderly. A lot of times with the elderly, they just want somebody to talk to. And the Talkpod is great for that. I know a lot of times, just from my own experience, I'm sitting around here and I've got nothing to do, Maybe it's late at night or it's, middle of the day, but I'm by myself. I got nothing to do. So I can always pick up the Talkpod if I want somebody to talk to. I can just pick it up and say, hello, is anyone out there? Is anyone listening? And hey, there's probably somebody listening. I've talked to people, in Europe. I've talked to people in the U.S. And, hey, you never know. Sometime I might hear people from somewhere else. Who knows? But the point I'm making is that you can pick it up and just talk to people. And I think that's a great idea in the ability to communicate. Now, granted, I want to talk to people. I could easily probably talk to somebody on one of the local radios as well. But there's a lot more activity on the VHAM than there is on local repeaters in my area, especially the GMRS repeaters. They're kind of quiet most of the time. Now, I'm sure if I wanted to radio somebody, there's probably somebody listening. But GMRS in my area is a lot like the dark forest hypothesis. Everybody's listening, but nobody's talking. All right, a little humor there for you. All right, people. Let me know what y'all's thoughts are on the Talkpod N39 Plus. I actually like it, and I find it to be useful, especially in conjunction with the VHAM app, because that makes it, where we can, where me and my wife can talk back and forth. Of course, Uh, that's true. That is true. On the Talkpod, you can't be censored on free speech. You know, my wife and I, we use the Talkpod. Of course, when she's at work, uh, the VHAM button is on her wristwatch. You know, she's got one of those smartwatches. So, it's sort of like she's a secret agent. She's got her earpiece in. She can hear what I say. Nobody else can. So she can push the button on her wristwatch and just starts talking. They think she's a spy. Oh man, how you doing, Marcel? It's good to see you there. I think the talk pod is a great idea for everybody to have. I think that we should all have one, just to have that extra tool in the kit. Now, I'm not a talk pod salesman, and I don't get paid to say that, but I actually do enjoy it, and I like it. Um, you know, I do. I like I said, I use this a lot. Uh, so, and it's a good little radio, really it is. But of course, like I said, it is based on cellular networks. So if the grid goes down, it's not going to work, and that's why you have to have a backup for that as well. Yeah, we'll talk about that later on. You know what I mean? Uh, we'll be on the other one later. So yeah. Uh, like I said, this here, of course, is a great tool to have. Now, of course, like I was and what I was going to say on that is, while this is a good tool, um, it's not the only tool that you can. It's not the only tool for you. You probably will need other tools in your toolbox, and as a result, uh, with having other tools in your toolbox, we're going to be talking about that later on. Uh, it sounds good. That sounds good. Um, so, like I said, there are other tools that you want to have in your toolbox, and we're going to talk about those on our next stream. We're actually going to be reviewing another radio. Which one will it be? Ooh, I don't know, but you're going to have to tune in and find out what we're going to be talking about. What radio will we be talking about next? Uh, hey, you know what? If two cans and a wire allows you to communicate with someone, then hey, that's another tool to have, isn't it? It is another tool to have. And we've got a lot of neat radio, a lot of interesting. I won't say neat. I'll say a lot of interesting radios coming up on the channel to talk about. We've got I've got one here that I did get the bugs worked out on, and we did get the bugs kind of worked out on it, but it's a good tool with a neat feature in it, a neat little feature in it that's not legal for use, but neat to have anyway, because when the grid goes down, who's going to stop you from using it, right? Of course, you will need to download the software into your computer to be able to use it if the grid goes down with that feature that I'm going to be mentioning on the radio, and you'll find out which one in a future video. But maybe get a little computer, download all the software you need. That way you can adjust it. And it only works between these certain radios. But that's another issue. We'll talk about some small radios, some large radios, and we'll talk about a radio that I just got. By the way, I just got a new radio in the other day. I got a couple in recently. One of which that we're going to talk about is a radio that I honestly think I'm going to give my kids. It retails at a high price. I got it on sale, but I think it's actually going to become. I think it's actually going to go to the kids because it just doesn't do what I thought it would do. You know, but sometimes you get that on the radio. You get that with the radio, right? All right. Anyway, that's a whole nother can of worms we'll get into later in the week, of course, or next week when we get to that one. All right. Of course, today, of course, we were talking about the Talkpod N39 Plus. And I want to know from you, the viewers, what are your thoughts? Leave them down in the comments section below. And let me know if you have an N39, if you've used it, or if you have a recommendation on a different radio that we should talk about in the future. All right, until our next live stream, y'all go out there and have a good day.